Today we'll be looking at Fortresscraft Evolved. And doesn't that just sound like the worst title ever? It's the most massive cliche about games I've seen so far. But whatever. The title isn't all that important, so long as you get the name out there, like in your trailer, if you pass it around on Facebook, Reddit, and such. Which you should do, obviously. I go on about this pretty much every single review, so please do it. Get your trailer out there if you have a game. If you don't have a trailer yet, make a trailer, and then put it out there. My complaints about this particular trailer are probably standard at this point. It doesn't tell you where you can buy the game. You should add some annotations for people viewing on Facebook and Reddit, and you should show some actual gameplay, not just nice shots of what the game could look like so late in the game that many players won't even see it. The description of the game feels like the developer patting themselves on the back. But the game does sound fun in concept. The description promises voxel landscapes, tower defense, crafting, logistics, exploration, combat, and assembly lines. If that sounds fun to you, I guess. I like some of that stuff. I like tower defense games. I like voxel landscapes. And I like exploration and combat. The thing is, though, is that's a lot of things. They'd need to be introduced slowly over time so that the player can get used to each mechanic if your game is that full of stuff. Does Fortresscraft do this? Fuck no. It gives you an opening cinematic and then drops you in the middle of nowhere with a bunch of random machines, very little instruction, and a hostile planet where you're probably going to die. Several times. Fortunately, in the default mode, dying doesn't mean shit, so I guess that's a plus. The game starts at night. Now, it may actually start at dawn, but it's dark, so I don't know the difference. Maybe start, like, further on in the day, maybe at, like, noon-ish. It's snowing in the game, probably everywhere. I never explored far enough to find a different biome. We'll talk about that later. Everything is closed in because the draw distance is fairly short, relatively speaking. And it's all claustrophobic. And the game makes me hesitant to explore, as I mentioned. Once I do move out a little, I'm greeted by what I can only assume are monsters. I only realized they wouldn't attack me about half an hour in. At least the newest version kind of tells me what to do. Find ores, set down extractors, and then manually ferry ore back and forth to my base until I can get some conveyor belts down, which is going to take a long, long time since you need a lot of materials for that, and your materials come from the extractors, which you have to get and then take to your smelter by hand until you get everything going. So, what's that about that assembly line stuff that was mentioned? Oh, it's there, but you can't really do anything with it at first. Okay, so maybe that's for later. As I already said, exploration is pretty discouraged right at the start, because it's at night and your suit only recharges automatically during the day. By the way, you're wearing a spacesuit because it's freezing cold, and you need to keep your spacesuit charged, otherwise you'll go hypothermic and die. Heck, you should always stay by your base, because everything you do drains the suit's power. Essentially, this game has exploration that tethers you to a radius of maybe half a day's walk, so maybe like 10 minutes out and 10 minutes back. For the first couple of hours of the game, you need to get a couple of suit upgrades in order to do that. And I wasn't able to get the first suit upgrade 2 hours in as a new player. As an experienced player, I could probably get it sooner, but quite frankly, the game bored and frustrated me so much, I'm not going to be picking it up again. So, how about crafting? Well, to craft something, first you need to either research the thing or get the materials. Okay, researching. How does that work? Well, you get research points from doing something. And the research station uses power to do research, which it gets from somewhere. Then you need materials, which means going out, finding a vein of ore, sticking a collector on it, and then ferrying energy to the collectors and ore, and then ferrying the ore back to the smelter, and then waiting for the smelter to smelt stuff out. And it's very, very slow. And you have to do this until you can find some iron, get the iron, smelt the iron, and make some smelters so that you can smelt faster. And remember, I found no iron in the starting area. I don't think I actually mentioned that before. Either way. Another kicker, the energy you transfer, at least before you get some energy relays up, which can be a bit difficult actually. Anyways, the energy you transfer comes from your suit, meaning that your extractors need to be fairly close to your base. But what about the actual crafting itself, you may ask? Well, you get the right materials, and then you click a single button. Like, you don't place down the materials, you don't really have any active part in crafting. If you have the materials, you have the item. I mean, at least in Minecraft, you had to experiment with recipes and stuff. But I guess maybe crafting isn't what you're here for, even though it's on the box. You'd think if crafting was a main part of your game, you'd at least have crafting be interesting in some way. So, as I said, you can set up some energy transfer stuff to mitigate the whole running back and forth giving everything energy using your suit thing. But the game doesn't tell me this. Yes, in the tutorial you do put down an energy laser relay thing, but the game never told me that's what I was doing. It just indicated that I should do it. All that high-tech machinery and just putting it down without really understanding it makes me feel like it's all too complicated for me to take it in. Can't I just have, like, a mining tool, a solar cell, and a small portable smelter? Do I really have to be tethered to this base trying to get the minerals to come to me? Maybe leave that for later in the game? And make a tutorial section, please? But you can't really mine minerals by yourself. It takes a lot of energy, and it sort of drains your suit, meaning you can't do it very far. Of course, that's just minerals. Things like stone, dirt, bedrock, etc. is easy. In fact, they just pop away with a single click, which feels terrible. There's no weight and no strength. Even the sound effect makes me think that the dirt or stone are made of plastic. Where's my epic drilling noise? The sound of rock crumbling. It's like you fired a gun in a video game and it sounded like a slide whistle. Sure, that might be funny, but it doesn't feel good to do it. What does feel good, though, is a neat little thing that happens when you hit F. You shoot out a kind of grappling hook, and the grappling hook pulls you to it. That's pretty awesome, and made walking around a little bit more fun. It's too bad that it used suit energy, meaning that if you use it for too much stuff, like, and start, having fun with it, then you'll need to stop, rush back to the base, and top up on energy. But even the buttons of Fortresscraft like being a pain in the ass. Using buttons like M and X to switch to different things like the scanner or the block gun doesn't feel right. When you have a mouse and keyboard game, all the buttons you need to press should be near the left hand. This means using WASD, Q and E, R, F, G, Shift, Control, and maybe a few numbers. X can work, but M does not. If I have to move my hand away from the movement controls to hit something, then you're probably doing it wrong, unless you have like a spaceship game where your ship keeps moving regardless. But let's say that you can ignore all of that and you just want to focus on pure gameplay. You've studied some tutorials online because the tutorial in-game is crap. You know how everything works. Good on you. I'm not going to bother with that. You've slogged your way through the first hours of game and you understand the systems. What do you do now, and how is it fun? Well, you gather resources, which is mostly automated, and you craft stuff, which you can also automate, and then you build stuff and fight against some monsters. So really, this game is about building and fighting monsters. And building things is pretty great. If you liked building things in Minecraft, or if you liked building complex factories in Factorio, you're probably going to like building things in Fortresscraft as well, since it's the same sort of puzzle solving and engineering that you do in those games. The fighting, not so much. The gun you get doesn't pack any real punch, and you'll be placing turrets around and letting them handle most of the fighting, so you don't actually do a lot of battling. To be honest, of all of the things that Fortresscraft says it does, the only things it actually delivers on are the Vorpal landscapes and its assembly lines. And to be honest, even they don't really tickle my fancy. All the machines you make, the creatures you encounter, and the tools you wield, all of it feels like the developers just took assets from a couple of different games and just slapped them together. There's no unifying aesthetic. The creatures look like they belong in one game, the character in another, the machines in yet a third, and the landscape is really just a Minecraft clone. Hell, even the blocks are just the same size relative to your character as in Minecraft. So, what do I suggest if you want to make a game like Fortresscraft Evolved? Okay, first off, don't. But if you insist, make sure there's a nice, long path that the player can take where they get the hang of each of your systems as they go. Make sure your systems are fun and that the player wants to engage with each and every one of them, and make sure all of your assets have a unifying aesthetic. But even if you did all that, Fortresscraft Evolved is simply an example of biting off more than you can chew. With all the different ways that the game tries to be interesting, it succeeds at making none of them fun. What this game really needed was a smaller scope and a tighter focus right from the start of development. But the developers is still working on it, so we can all hold out for hope that one day it will be everything it promises to be. Hey, at least unlike Minecraft, this thing has an actual ending. A real ending, and not just a text scrawl. Fortresscraft Evolved has breadth. There is a wide open world to explore, hundreds of machines, and a long research tree for you to explore. There's combat, for what it's worth. There's crafting, even though there's nothing really to it. There's resource management, I guess. But Fortresscraft Evolved is a game that does not want you to play it. It's a game specifically designed to make new players frustrated and bored. What it has is tons of mechanics and systems, and it lacks the ability to have you understand those systems without a lengthy guide that takes you out of the game, out of the world, and is as dry as a textbook. And I like reading textbooks. But underneath the crusty surface of a shitty tutorial and unnecessary complexity, there is a game that could be really fun. I just wish that was the game I was playing, and not the one I actually got. In the end, Fortresscraft Evolved is a barely acceptable game. Everything about it seems to have been made as unintuitive and obtuse as possible, and without some major updates to the tutorial, I cannot recommend that anybody go and play this game, unless you're willing to either wander around aimlessly for the first hour, or are willing to go and watch a tutorial series about how to play the game. Of course, as I mentioned, it is still in development, so the longer ago I put out this video, the more likely it is that the developer has worked on it, improved it, and made it better. So go and check on newer videos if you see them around. If you don't, it means the game died though, so either or. This has been Earth.Otherwise. See you guys in the next video.